Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Syngenta Canada, Alberta Wheat Commission, and C&M Seeds.
All right, I'm Lindsay Smith with RealAgriculture.com. I'm joined by John Hurd, soil specialist with Mafford. And it is a glorious spring day, one we've been waiting for a long time. And so we decided to go out in the field and dig up plants.
Yeah.
The first nice day of April. So we're talking winter wheat. We're talking survivability. What are we doing here today, John?
Okay, what we're going to do is just go through the motions of how a grower or a crop advisor might work with the grower to figure out, is that crop alive? Because in the past I've found farmers kind of hesitant to spend the nitrogen dollars on the crop until they know it's a keeper. And so what we have here, we're at the University of Manitoba farm, and there's some fairly late planted winter wheat, so it's not too advanced. So that's something that we may be curious, did it establish enough in the fall that it's going to survive here? Should mention, in Manitoba we do have a number of sites that have been tracking soil temperatures, and they have been tracked with the Winter Cereals website, looking at their estimator or calculator of winter survival. And so far the three sites, I believe Toulon, Morris and other sites, they're all looking good, that the soil temperatures really didn't get below -10 this past winter. So that is indicating us it's a green light on survival, but I always like to do a field confirmation. And
so we're sort of going to look at two ways now. I mean, because realistically what we see right now isn't necessarily going to tell us yay or nay. So now you've dug up some plants. Give us a few tips about what you need to dig, what you need to make sure you have, and then what we're going to do with it after.
Okay, we're doing here the older fashioned method where we're actually kind of digging out or scratching out a piece of sod. And for a piece of sod, we have some here that I've dug out, and I don't know if you can zoom in on that, but we're going to take this back inside. We'll put it in at room temperature, and we'll have to wait a while, but then we'll see if we're getting new growth from the crop. These leaves that we see that are green now are sometimes a little misleading. If there has been winter injury, it hasn't manifested itself yet. So we can't for sure call it a keeper. We need to see if these regrow properly.
Okay, so now let's, we mentioned soil temperature, which yes was very important, that all the snow that we had definitely insulated the plants in the soil, so that's great. But when does winter wheat and wheat set its yield potential? Because this is why the early nitrogen application is so key. Yeah,
the yield potential is often set. Well, with winter wheat, it's partially stand management, and we find that if there has been winter injury or stand thinning, that's why early nitrogen is important, because it stimulates tillering or encourages more tillering that may fill in a weak stand. And so that's, I guess, the first yield component we're looking at is what is the population, and that's the critical one for us to look at this point. This was late planted wheat, so it didn't establish as much as we would have liked. I have seen some agronomists have been doing this technique a couple weeks ago, and they've got some glorious looking sods right now, which gives their grower the comfort of knowing that it's full speed ahead with the winter wheat. We'll have to grow this out for a week or 10 days, and then we'll know for sure. So I should mention there's a quicker technique and an easier technique. I don't know if we can use it here. We could simulate it though, and that's what we call the bag technique, where basically it's generally for larger wheat that has developed the crown, and that we dig out the crown, trim it back with scissors, and then pop it in a plastic bag. And there you can find out in 4 or 5 days, based on new growth, whether it's working or not. And we might simulate doing that test here.
Okay, so we're gonna head now to inside, and we're gonna take a look at that sod and what we're gonna do with it to check survivability. Okay, John, here we are. We're in the lab. What are we going to do?
Well, we're just going to do nothing more detailed. We're just going to transplant these pieces of sod that we squeezed out of the ground. Hopefully, these sods, and just put some of them in a tray where we can let them grow out at room temperature for until we start to see some growth there.
So how long? Now, so we're not going to water these or anything like that. We're just going to give them time inside to grow.
Yeah, some of these are soaking wet right now, so I don't think they're going to require a lot of water, but what we might want to do is to keep it from drying out, sometimes people will put some plastic over top, just to keep it from desiccating too quick.
Okay, so now, and how long should this take?
You know, we've done this in the past, sometimes as little as a week, and you'll start to see you know, new growth coming here. The curiosity here is this was quite late seed, so this is quite delayed, and so regrowth may be a little slower than it would from a well-developed crown. So, but basically we'll just look to see, and not be too alarmed if some of these start to die. Sometimes the tissue that develops in the fall does brown off. What we're really looking at is new growth. If we don't want to wait for new leaves to show, we could certainly wait a week and then crumble and then look for new roots to be growing closer to the seed on these ones. So that's a technique that we used to use more often, and we could set up and do the bag test on some other samples that we have here.
Okay, so John, now we're going to go through the quicker method, the bag method of evaluation. So you've got yourself a big Ziploc bag there. You've washed off these crowns. You've got scissors and a spray bottle of water. So what are we doing here?
What we're going to do, the key thing we want to know is that crown alive? And the easiest way to find that out is to take off all the older growth that's there, so that as we grow this out, if we see any new growth coming, roots on the crown, we'll know that it's new. And I'm also going to take off all those leaves about an inch or half an inch above the crown, and so if we get extension of those leaves, then we have a good idea that it's alive also. And the way that I've seen this done, that's really a gigantic crown, much larger than what we're probably going to see in the field. We just wash it off, dry it up a bit, and then we would put it, or a couple of them, in a plastic bag. They suggest blowing breath of air into that, and then you would label that. I guess, what day is it today, Lindsay?
It is April the 9th.
Okay, so
the first nice day of the year.
Yeah.
And so now, how long will this take? So compared to in the tray,
this could be 3 to 5 days. Then, because this is warm, it's moist in there but not wet. That crop, we should be able to start to see growth from the crown quicker than we would with the transplanted sod test.
Right. So now, but the key here is that this is a giant crown that we've got. But could you do this with that smaller sod that we were looking at, or is there just not enough crown there to really?
Yeah, a lot of these you like to get your wheat up to about the 3-leaf stage in the fall. That's where you get a good, well-developed, compact crown. That's the overwintering structure. And this that we had, I think this was an experiment. It was planted very late, late September, October. So just didn't have the opportunity to develop that. Most of the winter wheat that was in the ground last year was planted suitably, and so we'd expect people to be able to do this technique with the crown.
Okay, so if you've got a crown, awesome. The bag technique is going to give you a decent indication in a pretty quick amount of time. 3 to 5 days.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Thank you so much.
Okay. Very good.